eating contaminated. So it is important to find out what can we do and how can we make our food safe at home. We just wish to let you know that this session is being recorded and that it will be for future use. And when anyone else who wants to participate, there'll be time for this. However, we shall let our presenters talk and take us through the session. So who are these presenters that we are talking about today? Today with us, we have Mildred Odhiambo. Mildred Odhiambo is an assistant lecturer and PhD candidate at Technical University. She is interested in championing for healthier food and choices, while encouraging behavior change at both individual, household, and community levels. So I'm sure we have a lot to look forward to hearing from Mildred. We also have Susan Wairegi, who is a certified nutritionist and lecturer at the Department of Human Nutrition and Dietetics at Technical University of Kenya. Her area of specialization is food and nutrition, community nutrition and NCDs. I'm sure there's lots. She's even writing a book, so she can tell us about that later as we touch base with her. The conveners of this meeting are the ones who've been helping us to answer these questions during this time are Dr. Ojwang and Dr. Mary Mugambi. So who are these? Mary Mugambi is a lecturer also at the Technical University of Kenya in the Department of Nutrition and Dietetics, and she firmly believes in educating people in health and nutrition because this leads to healthier communities and even a healthier nation. Dr. Ojwang is also a lecturer and a PhD at the TUK University, that's Technical University of Kenya. She has been in this field in nutrition and dietetics for over 20 years, and she no doubt has quite a lot to tell us today. So to start the meeting rolling, why don't we invite Dr. Ojwang to tell us the scope, the objectives, why are we here, what do we expect, and then we get the ball rolling. Dr. Ojwang, welcome.
Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us. We've been running these seminars for the last 3 months. And this is because people are asking a lot of questions, and we realize as a team that we have so much to give the community. So why don't we just try? So we have, the first one was on immunity, and the second one was on childhood obesity. And based on the questions that were raised, we now have this one, which is actually to talk about food handling and hygiene. People are scared, of course, like Lorraine said, people have been buying food and storing them. And we know the dangers in poor food handling. It can lead to disease, it can lead to death, it can cause a lot. So today, I also just want to let you know that, yes, we have students, we have professionals, and we have the lay person at home. And the goal for these seminars are actually to talk to the lay person. The students are being taught at the universities and colleges. The professors already know this stuff, but this seminar is for the basic wananchi. This seminar is going to cover food handling and hygiene at home. There is so much about food safety at industrial production, export. The value chain is wide, and that is a topic that we cannot discuss now. If you're interested, on the 8th of this month was the World Food Safety Day, and there were many talks on Nation TV and on KTN, and if you just Google, you will find them. There's been a lot of documentaries on food safety, like White Alert, which has drawn so much attention to mycotoxins and how to store your food and where we can find mycotoxins. But today, we want to help the Mwananchi. My friend Dr. Mugambi likes to say, we want to talk to Wanjiko, we want to talk to Ochieng, we want to talk to Nduku. So please, this is basically for the Mwananchi, so let's bring it home. What are we also as health professionals, as nutrition professors and nutrition, what are you doing at home? So let us give this opportunity to our colleagues from Technical University, Mildred and Susan. So that is my introduction. I hope you enjoyed the session very much. Remember, food is thy medicine and thy medicine is thy food. Thank you, Lorraine. Over to you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Ojwang. Very passionate about nutrition. Thank you for setting that ground. So our first presenter today is Mildred Odhiambo. She's addressing food handling at home, the steps of food handling that are essential to preventing foodborne illnesses, and demystifying myths, answering those questions we've had about food safety at home. So Mildred, welcome. You may unmute your mic and start your presentation.
Thank you very much, Lorraine, for the introduction. And I will start by uploading my presentation. It will take a minute or so. The topic that we are discussing today is food handling and hygiene at home. What are our objectives? The objectives today are food handling, related hazards, high-risk foods. We'll look at food poisoning, contamination, foodborne illnesses, and finally, COVID-19 and food handling. So what is the goal of food handling and hygiene at home? It is to protect your family members from foodborne illnesses and reduce the incidence of these illnesses at home. What do we understand by food handling? It is any aspect of preparation, service, and storage of food at home. Remember, right now we are in the house, we are preparing food, we are cooking food in the house. How are we going to serve it to the family members? How are we going to store the leftover food that is left, or the food that we've bought and stocked in the house, the cereals? How are we storing them to make sure that they are safe for consumption by our family members and our loved ones at home? Food hazards are very common, and we have the biological hazards that are bacteria, parasites, protozoa, molds, yeast, and fungi. We also have chemicals that are always very harmful, and improper storage or excess concentration while we're using them can cause harm to our family members. Remember, when the first case of COVID-19 was reported in Kenya, everyone rushed to the supermarkets and we bought sanitizers, we bought bleach and kept them in the house. We are using them, they are good, but we really need to be careful where we are storing them, how we are using them, what concentrations are we using, and they can also be harmful, especially if ingested, and they are very flammable. So we need to be careful. The next hazard is the physical hazards that include hair, stones, feathers, jewelry that can also get its way into our food. A good example is cereals that normally has stones. So if we don't handle the food properly, if we don't use the food properly while cooking, we can end up having stones in the food. And if you eat the stone when you're eating maybe beans or green grams, the event is not pleasant if you crush a stone as you're eating. Allergens can also be harmful to our family members. If we don't handle the food properly and a gnat gets into your food and one of the family members is allergic, then they can get an allergic reaction and end up in hospital very easily. So our food can get contaminated in the house. How does this contamination happen? It happens when objects or harmful substances in the food make it unsafe to the consumer. How does it become unsafe? One, by mixing our foods. You can see there we have the meats together with the fruits and vegetables, and together okay. They are together with the fruits and vegetables, and they make it unsafe to the consumer. They can easily get contaminated. Even when washing, we need to wash them separately. We need to wash our foods separately. Let me share my screen.
Mildred, we're already sharing the screen.
Okay.
Can you see?
Okay. As we were talking and continuing, food contamination. So as I was saying, you also need to wash them separately. Once you've already bought the foods in the house, the fruits and vegetables should be washed separately from other foods in the house. How can we avoid food contamination? The home. One, by purchasing food from reputable vendors and markets. Supervising food handling at home, very important, especially if there are so many food handlers in the house, or you don't handle the food. Make sure that you supervise and see how the food is being prepared. Pest control, very important at home. Pests can easily make our food unfit for consumption. We should always separate raw and high-risk food from all stages of delivery, storage, preparation, serving, and on the leftover food that we have at home. Storage is also very important, and disposal of waste and unfit material at home. And always remember to use appropriate equipment and utensils while you're preparing your food. Cross-contamination can also occur, and this is the transportation of harmful substances and bacteria from food to food, equipment to food, and humans to food. That is how cross-contamination happens. How can we avoid cross-contamination? We can avoid it by one, using the correct color-coded chopping boards and knives at all times. Where possible in the home, use different chopping boards for different kinds of food when you're preparing them. Like there we have a red chopping board for the raw meat, a blue chopping board for raw fish, a yellow one for cooked meats. The vegetables are green and the salads, jungle green, then dairy products are white. But all of us know that in the home setting, we cannot have these color-coded chopping boards. So what can we do in the home while we are preparing our food? We can cut the raw meat, wash the chopping board, wash the knife, cut your salad and fruits again, wash it before we cut our vegetables on the same one. So how do we store food correctly in the fridge, especially in the urban setting? How do we do it? We do not just put everything in the fridge all together. There's a proper way that we can do it. So it is normally advised that on the top shelf, we have ready-to-eat items. And at the bottom, we have raw foods should be placed at the bottom to avoid cross-contamination. And also put the food at the right temperature, that is from 0 degrees to 5 degrees in the fridge. For those who don't have fridges, we can always make sure that we put the different kinds of foods separately and cover them to avoid the physical hazards and chemical hazards from contaminating the food. So what are these high-risk foods? The high-risk foods are foods which in an ideal temperature or medium can have growth of bacteria and microorganisms very easily. They need protein, moisture, and warmth to grow. And you can see there in the examples, we have dairy products, meat, milk products, eggs, poultry. They easily get bacteria in them. So we really need to be careful at home when we are handling these type of foods. Examples of the high-risk foods, we have the meat. We have the meat, and the examples are poultry, dairy, milk, cheese, fish, and seafood. And we can see a risk pyramid that shows us, like the highest risk food there is minced meat and chicken that has already been cut into pieces. And the lowest high risk food on the risk pyramid are the processed meats. So if you have minced meat in the house or you've bought minced meat, cook it immediately or quickly put it into the freezer for us to avoid the bacteria from growing very fast and affecting us once we cook and eat them. Starches are also high risk, and there we have an example of beans, the potatoes, our pastas, our rice, that can also get aflatoxin very easily. We will talk about aflatoxin later, but it should be highlighted here because we were scared when the pandemic started. We went, bought a lot of cereals, stored them in the house. We are not checking them. We are just scooping and cooking, scooping and cooking. And the molds can easily get in. And these molds are the ones that will lead into this aflatoxin poisoning if not taken care of. We also have the sprouts, the group of raw foods, the fruits and vegetables, raw seed sprouts and cut melons that can also be a high risk of bacterial growth. So food poisoning can result from all these hazards that we've mentioned, and all the bacteria that has come into the food can cause food poisoning very easily. So what is food poisoning? It is an acute illness that happens when we consume contaminated or poisonous food. And it may be caused by bacteria, molds, chemicals, metals, poisonous plants, poisonous fish, or the shellfish group. So when poisoning happens, the symptoms can last from 1 to 7 days, and they include abdominal pain, diarrhea, vomiting, fever, and collapse. Someone can easily collapse, and it's really physically challenging. So this poison in the food can lead to foodborne illnesses. And we have some of the common foodborne illnesses as salmonellosis, caused by the bacteria Salmonella. The symptoms are stomach cramps, diarrhea, headache, nausea, fever, vomiting. And the sources are from raw meat, insects, soil, fish, eggs, raw salad dressing, and sliced vegetables. If you experience this, please go to hospital. Do not be scared. Go to hospital, contact your physician for further treatment. E. coli is also another infection that can happen caused by Escherichia coli. Onset is 3 to 8 days. The symptoms include bloody diarrhea followed by kidney failure. That can be very fatal. The food sources are undercooked ground beef, unpasteurized apple juice, undercooked fruits, vegetables, raw milk, and dairy products. Others that are common are also staphylococcal illness, shigellosis, botulism, listeriosis, among others. So please go to hospital if you experience any of these symptoms when you're at home. Viral illnesses are also common, and one example is the rotavirus that affects infants and children. The symptoms are vomiting, watery diarrhea, and low-grade fever. Transmission is person to person through contaminated hands. So we should be very careful to avoid our kids from getting sick. Mold illnesses, they spoil food, causing discoloration and unpleasant smell. They produce toxins, some of which can end up causing cancer and allergies. Heating the food at 60 degrees for 10 minutes can kill the spores, but the toxins are heat stable and are not destroyed by heat. So what is this aflatoxin? It is a mold or fungi that mainly found in foods. Which type of foods are these? The cereals, the nuts, that if we feed to our cows, we'll get it in the milk, we'll get it from the dairy, and we'll get it in the nuts through peanut and then eating the nuts. So the humans will consume, and you will get aflatoxin poisoning that leads to a condition known as aflatoxicosis, which is life-threatening, can damage the liver, of acute liver failure. The patients will present with jaundice, lethargy, nausea, and even death can occur. Reported in human populations since the 1960s, and in Kenya we had a widespread case that happened in 1981 and also in 2004 and 2009. So here we can see bread that is already having molds, and you can see how they look, vis-a-vis a maize cob, a clear maize cob, and groundnuts, how they should look like. So if you notice these molds in your stored cereals, please discard, don't cook, don't eat them, just throw them away. We have a few examples of the commonly contaminated foods like peanuts, rice bran, tree nuts, coconut, sorghum, hay, barley, wheat, corn, pumpkin seed, soybean meal. These are just the few cereals that I know we have right now in our homes. So we need to keep checking them. Make sure that as you want to cook them, look at them properly, where you've stored them, keep checking so that we don't get this poisoning. It can happen at any time to your family members. So let us be careful, check and recheck. Don't store these foods for so long. So to link food handling and COVID-19, the common symptoms are fever, dry cough, and tiredness. We also have the less common symptoms, including nasal congestion, headache, vomiting, sore throat, discoloration of fingers, and that is according to the WHO website. Those are the symptoms that they tell us are currently being used to check for COVID-19. So what is the link? What is the link between COVID-19 and COVID-19 symptoms and food poisoning? So we can see that COVID-19, we have fever, dry cough and tiredness, aches and pains, vomiting and diarrhea. And in food poisoning symptoms, we also have fever, abdominal pain, diarrhea, and vomiting. So we can see that the symptoms they run concurrently. So we should not be scared. Anytime we see these symptoms, we need to go to hospital, get tested for further treatment, or to be tested and told that actually it's COVID-19 or it's food poisoning. We shouldn't stay at home and we are feeling sick, or one of our family members is feeling sick. Let us get treatment. For COVID-19 and food handling, according to WHO, there is no evidence that SARS-CoV-2 is transmitted by food-producing animals. These are our domestic animals that we keep at home: poultry, pigs, cattle, rabbits, goats, and also consumption of cooked meat, domestic and wild. Eggs and milk are not considered a means for acquiring the disease. But again, preventing contamination of food or in the food chain supply with pathogens will go a long way to reduce the foodborne illnesses that are likely to emerge on the novel diseases as COVID-19. So we shouldn't be scared. It is a myth. It is an ongoing myth that what if, people keep asking questions, what if I have COVID-19 and I touch food, I touch fruits and vegetables, I won't get sick. Will I get sick or not? No, according to evidence, there is nothing of the sort. WHO tells us not to worry, but again, keep our food handling and hygiene really top notch in the house, you will not contract the disease, COVID-19. As a general rule, we need to remember that consumption of raw or undercooked animal products should be avoided. That one we've always done. You've always done it in the house. Raw meat, raw milk organs should be handled with care to avoid cross-contamination. And lastly, again, there is no evidence that the virus can cause respiratory illnesses and cannot be transmitted via food or food packaging. They need animal or human host to multiply. Let us remember that, everyone. They only need animal or human host to multiply. Next, I have a few resources where you can read later to find out more about COVID-19 and food. From websites such as World Health Organization, Food and Agriculture Organization, the CDC, that will help you read further on this topic, food handling and COVID-19. So lastly, I believe that proper food handling is the key to safe and healthy families. If we don't get sick at home right now, we will be healthy. We continue to consume, we continue to buy food, we continue to cook food. And if we do it and handle it safely, all our family members will be safe. Just as everyone says it, keep safe. Keep safe and consume food in the house. Thank you very much. We welcome questions as I hand over to my colleague, Susan Wairegi.
Thank you very much, Mildred.
Yes.
Thank you very much. I think we can now see the link between food handling and the diseases that come with it. Very well handled, we appreciate. Do we have 1 or 2 questions for Mildred? I think I saw one from Tamari. And by the way, feel free to post your questions on the chat, everybody. We shall handle most of them after the presentations, but now we can take just 2.
The first, sorry?
Go ahead, Mildred.
Okay, the first question I see there from Tamari Esho. Is there a risk of contracting COVID-19 through handling contaminated groceries from the market or supermarket, especially if it has been handled by a COVID-19 positive person? That is the question from Tamari Esho. And to answer Tamari, 1, yes, the COVID-19, you cannot get it from handling contaminated groceries in the market or supermarket. What are we advocating for right now is hand washing, sanitizing, especially when you come back in the house after you bought your groceries. Make sure that you wash your hands. In certain cases, you can even change the clothes that you had put on, if it is possible for some households, to have a room where you can remove your clothes and leave them there, soak them there, and put on other clothes as you enter the house. If you clean the bag that you bought your groceries in, you clean it, wash your hands, clean it, wash your hands as you clean your vegetables, you will not contract the virus through that. I hope I've answered the question.
Thank you very much, Mildred. I'm sure, Tamari, if there's anything more, please feel free to put it on the chat. Any other question, or should we just proceed? So since I don't see any question, let us move on to the second presentation, which is by Susan Wairegi, closely related to this. Susan will help us to understand how we should behave and handle food during shopping and after shopping during this COVID period. And then we also want to hear about food hygiene and also how to store grains at home. So thank you, welcome Susan. You now have the stage. Please let us understand this very important point. Okay, Susan?
Yes.
Okay, Susan, we can hear you now. Thank you. Susan?
Yes, in a minute.
Okay.
Yeah. So I was saying that this is the second part of the presentation on food handling and hygiene, especially during this period where we have COVID-19 with us. So to start us off, I can start by defining what is food hygiene so that we are together. So food hygiene are the conditions and the measures that are necessary to ensure that the food is safe from production to consumption. So basically this is about having putting measures in our homes during food preparation, during food service to ensure that it is safe for everyone in the family. So food hygiene is more than just about cleanliness of the food. It's about protecting the food from the risks of contamination, and my colleague has done a very good job on that. It's also about preventing those bacteria from multiplying to an extent that they can cause food poisoning. And also it's about destroying those harmful bacteria or those harmful microorganisms that are within the food to make sure that that food is safe. And you can do that by thoroughly cooking the food. Even if food is not fit for consumption, it should be discarded. If we don't adhere to these practices at home, we are likely to find ourselves sick, that is, we get food poisoning, outbreaks in our homes, in our workplaces. Sometimes we carry this food there. We're also likely to find pests infesting our homes, and we waste a lot of food that is costly. So during this period of COVID-19, how should we handle our groceries? How should we behave out there when we go shopping? And after shopping, how should we behave so that we do not contract the disease or pass it to any other person who is not infected in case we're infected? Of course, we are being told that we need to keep distance, that is social distancing, from one person to the other during shopping. When we are doing our shopping, be it at the or in the supermarket or whatever shop we are buying, let's try and keep at least 1 meter distance from the other person. In case the place is crowded, refrain from going there. Keep that distance. Wash your hands before you get into the store, and even after you are done with your shopping. We are finding that everyone today, be it at the open air market or at the retail shops near our homes, we have provision for washing our hands. So let's use those provisions and wash our hands before handling that food and then handling the food. If you're sick, do not go shopping. Send somebody or look at other avenues of shopping, online shopping. Use washable bags, my colleague have mentioned, and also make a grocery list prior to the shopping. This will help you to know exactly what to pick, for example, in the supermarket, so that you don't go and spend a lot of time in the supermarket. That will make you less exposed to any possibility of getting the virus. Again, it also helps you not to touch so many other items. And in case maybe your hands are contaminated with the virus, you may spread it to many other items. Or you may actually even get it from those touching of many other items. Cashless purchase is the norm now. Even the Mama Mboga has accepted it. So let's use it as much as possible. And at all times, let's wear the masks. After shopping, how do you behave? Now you are done with your shopping, you are back. For some of us, we are able to leave our groceries outside somewhere, like in the garage or at the porch area, because we are told that the virus can be inactivated after some hours, maybe depending on the material it has landed on. When the virus is in the air, it can last for 3 hours. But when it lands onto materials, depending on that kind of, depending on the material, it can last for several days. Like on steel, it can last for 3 hours. On plastic, it can last for 3 hours. So we can, if possible, we can leave some of these patches that we have done somewhere and leave for maybe 3 hours to let the virus be inactivated. But this may not be possible, depending on where we live. So what we need to do is get in with your groceries, unpack immediately, wipe the packagings with water. Sometimes, if it's possible, you can add a disinfectant and then wipe the packagings. Then clean the vegetables with clean running water immediately and let them drain before you store. Empty, if you had taken takeaways, empty those takeaways in a dish and again store them maybe in the refrigerator. And then, of course, keep washing your hands in between. As you handle this and that, keep washing your hands. Shoes should not be brought into the house. They should be left outside. And of course, the garment that you had worn, if you need to be more extra careful, you can change into indoor clothing and immediately wash those other clothing and dry them out there in the sun. So according to the WHO, there are 5 keys that helps us to promote safe handling. That is, if we practice these 5 key points, we are going to promote safe handling of food at home and everywhere else that we handle food in. So we start with the keep clean. The first point is keep clean. And this is about personal hygiene. Washing of hands mostly is a personal hygiene measure. So we usually wash our hands, but are we doing it effectively? That is the question. Are we doing it effectively? So how do we need to wash our hands? How can we do it in a most effective way? The first thing is to wet the hands using clean running water. Wet the hands thoroughly, then apply soap and lather properly. So then you proceed to scrub. Scrub all the surfaces, the palm of the hand, both palm, the back of the hand, between the fingers, at the thumb, scrub. That should take you about 20 seconds. You can count as you do it, 1, 2, 3, until 20 seconds. And with the time, it will come automatically. You get to know the time that you spend during washing. For children, we can ask them to hum the happy birthday song twice. It will take them about 20 minutes. So after scrubbing, then you rinse. with running water, clean running water, not in a basin, running water. Then you dry in the air or you use disposable towels. When should we wash our hands? Okay, we are talking about after coming from the market, after handling food. There are other times that you also need to wash your hands. Before eating, after eating, after visiting the toilet, after blowing your nose, before cooking, after handling the garbage bin. So you need to wash your hands frequently. In a day, you can wash your hands many, many times. So in the kitchen, again, how do you behave so that you do not transmit food? Okay, the first thing is, you do not need to eat in the kitchen. You are cooking, yes, but you need to taste food. So the eating is done in the dining room somewhere else, but not in the kitchen. Also, smoking should not be done in the kitchen. So sometimes we need to taste the food. We need to taste the food, whether it has enough seasoning and so. And sometimes we use the wrong method of doing that. We take the stirring spoon and like here, and then use the same spoon to taste the food and then return it back into the pot. That's not, you've taken it into your mouth. So what you need to do is take a saucer, put a little amount of food onto it, take a spoon and then taste. Of course, now you get to know whether it is well seasoned. Don't sneeze or cough into food. If you need to do that, use a disposable tissue or sneeze at the bed of your elbow. There are other things that you need to practice, like wearing protective clothing and keeping our nails short. In case you touch your body, wash your hands, like maybe your hair or your nose, wash your hands before you proceed to cooking. In case you're sick again, don't cook. Wearing jewelry to the minimum. If you have rings on your fingers, like the ones we love very much, you can remove them during cooking because they trap dirt. So you can remove them, but and then have, later, put them on later after cooking. About food hygiene, it has to do again with cleaning of the food. How do we clean other foods? So in case of vegetables, you use running water to clean them. Even at this particular period of COVID-19, clean running water is effective in cleaning our vegetables. We don't need to dip them in soap, no. We just need to have running water. Then, of course, separate the raw. I'm going to mention it somewhere else. You separate the raw from the cooked food. Clean shopping bags, clean the refrigerators, make sure that the perishables and the leftovers are well stored and so on. So the other point that promote safe handling of food is separating raw food from cooked food. So here again, my colleague has mentioned and also explained in details about using different chopping bowls, not mixing the cooked and the uncooked. You can also work from different areas for cooked and also for cooked and for uncooked, and you saw different. The other point on promoting safe handling of food is cooking thoroughly. Food should be cooked thoroughly. If you have a thermometer, you can test your food, the inside, whether it is at the right temperature. Food should be cooked above 70 degrees Celsius. So special attention to minced meat, large joints of meat, and whole poultry, because these foods are high-risk foods. Keep food at the right temperature is another key area to observe. How should we, what cooking temperature should we ensure that our food is in? above 70 degrees. Storage below 4 degrees Celsius. Now, between 4 and 70, that temperature is called the danger zone area. It is where the microorganisms thrive best. Within a very short time, less than 2 hours, they thrive to a threshold that can cause now the food poisoning. So make sure that you observe those temperatures strictly and freeze your food to less than 18, to minus 18 degrees Celsius. The other point is using safe water and raw materials. How safe is our water? If you're not sure your water is very safe, you can treat it at home, you can boil them. Also try and prevent contamination with untreated water and sewage at home. Use safe raw materials. Again, buy from clean vendors, clean sources, check expiry date. This is also another key point that can also help us have. Now, due to the demand, the public demand that our Dr. Ojwang had mentioned earlier, we decided to also look at the storage of grains in our homes and also the flour. As we were told by our moderator Lorraine, when we heard that there are going to be lockdowns and curfews and all that, we went out there and shopped in bulk and shopped in bulk. Now we have these grains in our homes. How do we now handle them? How do we keep them safe? You know, some of us are now wondering, these grains are getting mold, these grains are getting weevils. What should we do about them? So in my house, or what I do, if I open a packet, now the one we have here, or a maize flour, of course, maybe I may not finish it within one cooking, some will remain. So how do I now So after opening the sealed packet, I have poured the required amount that I need. I will fold and then a band or a peg. These pegs can be found in the supermarket. Go out there, you will get them. If you don't have these pegs, you can use the clothes peg. They work very well. Really tighten the packet. So after now this, you can now put your flour into the zipper topped bags. Remember again to indicate the patches in case you have top. So this works very well. It prevents the weevils and other insects from getting into the flour, and the flour can remain fresh for long. You can also use vacuum sealer bags or the mailer bags. This example I have given a picture there. Bags, they are very good, durable bags, though expensive. So you can portion your grains into, then add an oxygen absorber, like the one that we see mostly in packagings. So don't throw them away. Come an absorber into each bag. Then try and push out all the air in case you're using heat. So push out the excess air and then use the heat sealer to seal your bags. The heat sealers are there in the market. Find them in butcheries. Very, very common with the butcherman. So usually pack our meat and then they seal so that there is no dripping of the meat juice from the packaging. So you can use the heat sealer. You can use one to place these small portions into a food grade bucket and then seal it. A food grade bucket looks one, but you can also use the commonly bucket lid. It can work very well. Again, you can store your grains in the refrigerator, but I don't really encourage this very much because if the grains may turn rancid. especially in Kenya where we have interruption with electricity. You can use mailer bags I have mentioned, and you can also use beans. Metallic bins are like this, where you can now put your grains in, and then at the bottom there is a slot where you open and the grain just flows. And then, you know, it is well covered. It is tightly sealed. So this one you use if you have more grains to store, maybe for sale or something of the sort. Traditionally, we use different methods, which we can still apply today. So you can put your grains out in the sun, of course, to dry them thoroughly and then store them in such pots. So you can have a pile of them or just one big pot. You can have underground pits. This keeps insects away because of the depth, and also the food is kept cool. You can use gourds, and they usually come with a stopper at the top. You can use, maybe in our rural settings, we can have a bamboo house like this one. And also we can have straw bins to store our grains. So with these measures and those other measures we have mentioned, we are likely now to our food in the right manner, and therefore we have healthy foods that are devoid of microorganisms that make diseases, and also help us again to handle this food in the right manner during this period of COVID-19. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And that was a very good presentation and also very practical. I'm sure everybody here appreciates that we have learned something that will help us to store our food better and therefore avoid disease. Thank you very much, Mildred, and thank you very much, Susan. Now we want to open the discussion to the plenary, and to start us off, let's ask Dr. Ojwang to make a few comments based on the presentations. And please unmute your mic, Dr. Ojwang.
Thank you, Lorraine. Thank you, everybody, for being here. Thank you for the good comments that we see on the chat room. And thank you for listening. I think Susan and Mildred have been very good. They've given us very good information. And I see a lot of questions by. So I am not going to say anything much now. Maybe Lorraine can involve the rest of the team. I see many people here who can also make some critical contributions. Yes, Lorraine, over to you.
Okay, so we've had some interesting comments, and allow me to say thank you very much for joining us for this conference. We appreciate that you had other things to do, but you came to be with us, and we hope that this has been useful. So I see interesting comments. I think one person who has made a lot of comments here on the chat has been Dolin Busolo, and he has asked several questions. How to, or at least comments, asking us to simplify the indigenous foods that, to levels that we understand, to really speak to Wanjiko, and that is what we're trying to do. So any questions here can be answered. And Tamari Esho, I think, let me start with your question, Tamari. This was a question to Susan, and the question is, can we use surgical spirit or spray or wipes on the packages of foods? Or is it just best to use soap and warm water? Susan, please.
Okay, that's a very good question. So when we bring our groceries back in our houses, we may not really need to use surgical spirit as the wipes. You simply need to use warm water and soap and wipe. In case you have the household jig, household bleach like jig, you can add jig into water, cold water, and use it to disinfect the packages. the containers. So we really don't need to use surgical spirit for that.
Okay, I hope that is clear. A question closely related to that is from Susan, and she's asking, how do you achieve running water if there are no taps?
Okay. If they're not taps, I think Kenyans are very innovative. We have seen what they have done out there in the open market. They have taken a simple mtungi or a bucket, and then they have put a provision for the tap. And therefore, you just need to pour the water into the mutungi and open the tap, which is very, very simple, very, very cheap, and very practical. In some places, you can have a polythene bag or a polythene bag with some opening at the bottom and hang it maybe somewhere in the kitchen or above the sink, and then have that stopper opened when you need to pour to clean. Yeah, to clean. So you just, the water will flow as running water in such a tap.
Okay, Susan.
Mildred may also add something onto that.
Okay. Okay. Next, as I said, Doreen Busolo had a lot to say, and the question to you, Susan, again, is it acceptable to taste when we are cooking taste for flavor using a mwiko and clean hands?
That's that's very, very good question, actually, because that's what we usually do. We take the mwiko and put it put the food onto our palm end and taste. I wouldn't really advise onto that, because now you're using your hands to do the tasting. The best method is to use a saucer. Place some little amount of food, and don't use the same mwiko that you are using in cooking. Use a different, like a spoon, a different item, like a spoon. Taste your food. It's very important to taste your food. It will be very awkward if you take your food to the table and it has no salt, or the salt is too much. So you need to taste, but use the right way of tasting. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you for that. Another question that comes out for you is from Joy Kamaingi, and she's asking about the minimum internal temperatures. So her question was, what is the minimum internal temperature that's suitable for cooking?
Okay, so there are these large chunks of meat that we are cooking, for example, in an oven or in an temperatures may not really penetrate within the food as fast as maybe on the surface of the food. So we need to give this food enough time so that the temperature can penetrate within the food. If you're cooking, let's say a whole chicken, you're roasting a whole chicken, you may not be able to determine the temperature, inside it. So you may need to use a thermometer. If you can afford, you need to use something that can tell you the temperature that is inside that chicken. So above 70 degrees Celsius is what is recommended. Food must be cooked above that temperature. So at home setup, in our rural areas, we may not really have that chicken cooked as a whole. We usually shred them and cut them into pieces. That is a better way, or it's more convenient for everyone, because the food will cook evenly and within a short period of time.
Okay, I trust that answers that very well. Another question, and this could be either by Mildred or Susan. What are those critical points in handling or preparing meats? And especially the question is matumbo, that can help us cut out the transmission cycle of COVID-19 in that kind of meat, and especially matumbo, as I said. Susan, Mildred, who can answer that?
Sorry?
Would you proceed? What are the critical points in handling or preparing of meat, and especially matumbo, that can stop or cut the transmission cycle of COVID-19?
Okay. my colleague Mildred mentioned that the COVID-19 is not transmitted through food. It's not a foodborne illness. It is more of a respiratory virus, and therefore we do not contract the food from the COVID-19 from the food. But what we can do if the food is contaminated, for example, with the COVID-19, if somebody maybe sneezed and the droplets landed onto the food, and you happen to touch the food, then touch your own face, maybe mouth or eyes or nose, then you can get the illness, the condition. About cooking, we just need to follow the usual cooking procedures. Make sure that food is thoroughly cooked by making sure that that food is cooked within the right temperature and for enough time. And maybe Mildred can add on to that about the critical points.
Thank you very much, Susan. And thank you for the question. Just as Susan has mentioned, there is no evidence. The only, as even in the World Health Organization website, is that you keep your raw meats and other foods separating them and cooking them thoroughly, just as Susan has mentioned. So we do not need to be worried about that. Buy your matumbo, cook it thoroughly. Remember, always wash your hands before handling, wash your hands after handling. The equipment and utensils that you've used should be washed before you use that very same equipment to cut other foods.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, so still talking about cooking methods, there's a question on the underground method from Nima Kagwiria. How should it be done? Can the soil be a source of contamination?
Yes, yes, very right.
Mm-hmm.
Soil is a good source of contamination, just as I'd mentioned in my presentation. Yes, Susan mentioned that we can store the grains on the ground. Okay. But there was a caveat. You take it, you put it in a container before lowering it down to the ground, and then you cover. So that way you have broken that pathway between the soil and your container or your basket that you've put underground.
Okay, I hope Nima,
yes,
that
Susan,
is clear.
You can also mention something if you see that I've left something out.
Okay. I think that should be clear that it has to be covered to avoid contamination. Mm-hmm. Another question is from Moshud Alo. He says, I have noticed that after expiry, the foods packed from factories such as bread usually have organisms that cause spoilage despite the thorough disinfection process during processing. Where do these microorganisms come from?
Okay.
Yes, to make a comment on that, Mashud Alo, bacteria, really small, tiny organisms that we cannot even see with our naked eye. So in the processing pathway or in the cooking pathway, you're mentioning bread, I believe. Maybe you bought the bread from a supermarket or from a bakery. And the microorganisms start getting in even from the level of the farm. Just as at the beginning, Dr. Ojwang mentioned that we don't want to go into issues of food safety. But I believe that is where the contamination starts. So once the bakery buys the flour, the person who is preparing this food, what kind of hygiene or food handling practices did he incorporate when he preparing the bread? That is why they go spoiled easily. They get spoiled easily. Microorganisms are very tiny and they can get in through the processing, the cooking, even packaging. Yeah, even as you've mentioned there, you're saying during disinfection, during processing. Yes, you're disinfecting, but the microorganisms were already there. Yes.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
All right, thank you. Then for the shoppers, since we mentioned we did quite a lot of shopping, there's an interesting question here from Salifa Sylvia, who says, what's the difference between expiry date and sell by date?
Oh, okay. Now, when you talk of sell by date, it simply means that it is recommended that that food should be sold within by that or before or by that date. But after that date, the food may still be may still be fit for consumption for a few more days. So it has not really spoiled. When we talk of expiry date, it means that food should not be taken or it's not fit for human consumption after that particular date, that expiry date. So it's good to read the labels on food packaging to get to really know, is it about the expiry date or is it sell by this date? But again, sell by date doesn't mean really you buy a food that is so close to sell by that date. Yeah.
So we be careful as we go shopping. Just note the dates and avoid contaminated food. Thank you very much. So let us just get a comment from an expert end. And I'm looking at Dr. Patricia Ukegbu. Please give us your thoughts on the topic we have been discussing and also experiences that can help us to apply what we have learned and use it positively for safe food handling.
Okay, thank you, Lorraine, for the opportunity to speak at this topic you have chosen at this time. The topic is actually very, very handy because food to live a healthy life. And if the food we are consuming is unsafe, what happens? So that is exactly the scenario we find ourselves in now with this COVID-19 pandemic. So due to the way the virus is transmitted, it is important that we should follow good hygienic practices. So your hygiene should be top priority. So thank you to the speakers who have enlightened us more on this topic. So for me, for our experiences here, you know, as a homemaker or a mother in the home, you know, I have to take responsibility for the health of my family. So for my shopping, let us look at it from the markets. Most times in Africa, you know, we have open markets. We buy from the open market. So what do people do? They touch the food before buying. And this is a very wrong practice at this time. Touching the food, such foods as the fruits, like your apples, your mangoes, you touch, you leave, and then somebody else comes, touches, and leaves the food, you know, it's a problem. So when I go to buy this food, I tell the sellers to try as much as possible to avoid people touching their foods before buying. Another area we also have to look at is in terms of handling of money. When we go to these open markets to purchase food, handling of money is very important. It is not in every situation that we have the cashless society. In the open market for the rural women there is nothing like cashless society. They touch the money and then you have to enlighten them, tell them the implications of what they are doing and wash their hands after touching the money. Then if you go back to the home, how do you make sure or ensure your foods are safe? So on coming back from the market, what do? I don't offload my groceries in the kitchen. I put them outside and then offload from outside to the kitchen. And you know, there is the currently known that the virus can be transmitted through food or food packaging. What about the contact surfaces? That is what we are now afraid of. So these bags I go to the market with, I don't take them into my kitchen. I have to and then move the food one after the other into the kitchen, so that even if the virus is on the package, food packages, then it stays there. It doesn't go into my kitchen. And then on getting to the kitchen, I also wash my hands in running water. Wash my hands in running water. For my fruits and vegetables, I wash them in running water in order to eliminate the virus. And there was something I forgot to say. When I go to the market, I have my sanitizer in my bag. I always go with my sanitizer so that whatever, I use the sanitizer on my hands, you know. So in the kitchen there, I make sure I separate my raw foods from the fresh food, the dry foods, just like the speakers have said. And this is very important in order to avoid cross contamination. And then I also make sure that all the surfaces I try to clean, because now in terms of food handling, I am the only one in the house that handles food. My kids and other people in the house also handle food. So I teach them good hygienic practices, you know, so that we are all safe from this COVID-19 pandemic. You know, eating is one of the ways we can transmit food into the mouth. So it is important that we take responsibility for our health. Now, no wonder the food safety, the World Food Safety Team was food safety. It's everyone's business, you know, so it is everyone's business. So all hands must be on deck to ensure that the foods we prepare at home is safe for everyone. So thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Dr. Patricia Okegbu. That is practical and also professional. I'd like to call upon another professional, Dr. Esho, to share her experience and also advise on what to do on this important topic. Dr. Esho, please. Dr. Esho?
I don't see her. I think she probably stepped out. Sorry about that.
Okay, all right. Okay, fine. In her absence, then let's get another professional mother, professional grandmother, and ask Mrs. Yuna Obiero. Please share your experience and tell us if what we learned today was practical and has been effective for you. Mrs. Yuna Obiero, please.
Hello, everybody.
Hello.
Ha, Lorraine, professional grandmother indeed. Eh?
Yes, you are, madam.
Well, I'm not expert in this area, and what I've learned is I'm a food lover, love to cook, love to shop, and love anything foodie. I'm a foodie person. So yes, this is a very good session. There are many things we have learned, which I also practice. And just to add to what has already been said, it should start from shopping. When I shop, you must have a plan. What I do is I do the hard shopping before, like hard groceries. Like if you need to buy sugar, do the supermarket shopping first, and then the meats and the perishables later. If you must do them first, then if you're able to, it's wise to carry a clean, those refrigerated, what are they called? The cooler bags, so that you do them. So it starts by shopping, and then once I get home, I have a cool bag. So what I've learned during this COVID period is like I think Patricia mentioned, I have a backyard. So all my food goes there and sits there for some time. I don't bring it into the house. Then later on, I, of course, putting the meat separate from the dry foods and the vegetables and fruits separately. And then after some time, I give myself an hour or two. I don't know if that's enough, because maybe the professionals will advise me if that's enough for the virus, if it's sitting on any of them, to die. But after a while, I clean all the food. I bring it in. I clean the meat. I don't know if anybody does it, but I'm one of those grandmothers who wash their meat and chicken thoroughly before storing it. So I wash it thoroughly with, I add some cleaning agents like Milton. I like Milton or WaterGuard, and add to the water. I clean the surface of the meat or the chicken, let it drain off, and then thoroughly wrap it clean, in a tight, airtight container when it is dry, and straight to the freezer. Now, this I do at least minimum 2 hours for the perishables. Now the vegetables get the same treatment. I wash them, cut them, use this detox, these Milton and WaterGuard to clean them, cut them up, and then let them drain and cook them. Cook it or freeze it. I have also discovered that if you put a lot of food in the fridge, it goes bad quickly. So I opt to freeze more of my food. I'm a culprit. I did a lot of grain shopping and dengus and beans during this COVID period, when we were told, we didn't know how long we would be at home. So I suddenly found myself with weevils. I didn't know what to do. So in time, I learned that you put them out in the sun, the weevils would crawl out, select them. Then I had a friend bring me some airtight containers from a visit abroad. So you store them in and make sure I think they're Ziploc bags, which are airtight containers. So store them in that. But sadly for me, I found even some weevils in those airtight containers. So I don't know if I did something wrong. So what I did is I threw some away. Well, not really throw. I have a little garden, so I planted them. And the rest, what did I do with it is the good parts, because I try not to waste food, is boil it and store it boiled in the freezer. So the grains are stored, the rest I gave away because I think I overshopped at the time. But drying it out in the sun when the weather is good, putting it out on trays in the sun helps. Storing it in airtight containers, some survived, some didn't, also helps. Or boiling it and putting it in the freezer is also a good way of storing it. Now, what else? What tip did I? Then I've discovered something new also. You can store maize flour or wheat flour in the fridge. So what I do, you normally buy the unga pack, look for that. And this I learned from a friend abroad who would receive, ugali flour from Kenya. And what did they do? They had those nice big American airtight containers, took the flour, put it in those airtight and put it in the lower shelves of the fridge. And guess what? It can last a long time. So I've tried to do that as well for flours, wheat flour, whatever flours you have, like even millet flour. And I think that's it. I was not prepared for this, but I don't know if that's helpful or...
That is very good. It's best when you're not prepared, because then it's true, off the cuff, and practical. And I'm sure we can add to what you've said, plus what the professionals have said to help us to handle our food very well. I have another professional in the room. That is Suman, SK Suman. Can we ask you to comment? And thank you very much, professional grandmother, Yuna Obiero. SK Suman, are you in the house?
She's in, she can unmute herself. Suman Kumari.
Okay. As we wait for Suman, why don't we ask Dr. Ojwang to now come in and just give us experience and also professional, taking your professional input.
Thank you, Lorraine. You're doing a good job keeping us busy. I think I really liked what Dr. Ukebu, all the way from Nigeria, said. You see, we have the same practices. When you go to buy fruits, avocado, you know, you touch, and then we forget to wash our hands, we forget to sanitize. But I must say, when I go to the market, I take all the precautions like Patricia mentioned. But one thing I remember, food handling is so important. And if you have bad habits, they can be seen in the health of the family. I remember growing up, our whole family had amoeba. We kept having amoeba, So all of us had to go to the laboratory to do a stool test, and then they found overrun cysts, and so they tried, we still had the same problem. So one day, a doctor said, fire the house girl. And my mom was like, being a health professional, she was like, what do you mean fire the house girl? She's like, there seems to be a problem in the way she handles food. And after my mom fired the house girl, we all got better. I only understood the importance of food handling when I grew and was now doing nutrition and health. So if your children keep having diarrhea, they keep having infections, how is your food handling? And I like explicitly the way Patricia said, you know, you go to the market, we're always touching. And when you come back, do you really wash them properly, or you just throw them in the sink and wash them and go? Also, one thing that sometimes I suffer from is, yes, I've washed my food properly, I've left them there, then I put them in the fridge, but I don't wipe them dry. So when you don't wipe dry, your tomatoes will go bad, your fruits will go bad very, very quickly, and then that now becomes another problem. You lose food, so you waste food security issues, so you waste food because you did not store them properly. So for now, that is all I have to say. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much for that input. I think we had another question which we can have and then ask Peter Gishuhi to comment as well as a professional in the field. So before Peter Gishuhi speaks, why don't we ask, there's one question that came up about chemical hazards. Stephen asked, the chemical hazards found in pesticides and sick animals, how does that affect the food, and especially dairy and meat products that come to our table? That's to our two presenters, Susan, Mildred. How do the chemical pesticides help affect milk and meat? Mildred, thank you.
Thank you very much for the question. He's talking about the pesticides that we use. I can't see the question.
Chemical pesticides, and so he mentioned chemical hazards that include pesticides or that we use to treat sick animals, and how that impacts on the food that we handle.
From the research that I've seen, they just mentioned that yes, it will affect, especially the antibiotics, the pesticides when they're treating or getting rid of the insects. Yes, we have the harmful chemicals, we have harmful pesticides that affect humans. The research is there that it affects humans, but not all, just some, causing even cancers and other diseases. So yes, that is true.
So it does affect, and therefore the handling now comes in after that.
Handling, yes.
Once it gets to our market and our kitchens.
Mm-hmm. Lorraine, can I mention something?
Yes, Dr. John.
Yes, thank you. I think that's a very important question that also touches on the safety, and this is now safety during production. Yes, and I think when we started the session, I said we should not this is a big topic, but because it has come up, let me say, this of course, when they use antibiotics to treat animals, there has been a lot of literature on the effects on health. Because of animal production, they want to grow the chicken very fast, or the pig or the cow. They have to use antibiotics to treat them, and they also have to use some other steroids for the animals. And these actually have found their way into our foods. And this has caused a lot of problems. Some of them have caused pharmaceutical problems where people get sick with a condition that can be treated by antibiotics, but they're resistant to the antibiotic in the market. So this person is sick for longer, and it takes very long to treat them. And of course, like Mildred has mentioned, also some of these things have been associated with cancer, obesity, especially in children. And there's a very good documentary you can watch that can help you to understand the health effects of animal production. And this is Food Inc. Food, INC, What the Health, and Forks and Knives. There are documentaries you can get on YouTube that can educate you further on this. Thank you, Lorraine. Over to you.
Okay, thank you very much. I think we said we'll ask Peter Gishuhi to comment.
Thank you, Lorraine. May I make a small contribution on that part of cereal handling and keeping in our households? These days we have big bags in which one can keep cereals, particularly the maize, the rice, the peas, and the beans. It has two walls, polythene walls on the inside, and specifically meant to keep grain for a long time and prevent infestation with the weevils and those other insects. I use them, and if one can get one bag, then you can store in there the dry maize, the beans, and all those other cereals. And this can even be enhanced further by a drying pepper, the red pepper, the piri piri. And then you put it in small bags and you tie them and you throw them amongst the cereals in that bag and you tie it on top. That pepper has been used in Ethiopia for a long time now for preservation of maize, and the weevils never go near that content. And it has gone a long way in not using the pesticides like Acteric, which used to be used long ago, and in fact it's used today in some areas, which normally keeps away the weevils. And the advantage, just as Dr. Ojwang has said, is that we are able now to eat maize without Acteric. We know it keeps away the weevils, but nobody has done a serious work on how that may affect human health in the long run. There is also the element of pesticides. And we just assume that the vegetables we buy are coming fresh from the farm without having been sprayed. And we pray that they are sprayed, and we continue to wash the loose particles and any other contaminants that may be on the surface. And we just pray that the farmers in the food chain will not use those harmful sprays just before harvesting the produce and selling it to us. And that's why thorough cleaning with flowing water is very critical, particularly for the vegetables that we buy in the market, because they may look very nice, they have no spots, they have no insects on them, but it's good to always suspect that they may be having insecticides and those pesticides contamination, and clean them thoroughly. Of course, there is the idea of going organic, and we hope, particularly with vegetables, all of us and the farmers and the producers will go through that direction, because that could be the key to the concern on cancer cases that keep arising, because we are just buying, but we never actually get involved in the production cycle. Thank you, Lorraine.
Thank you very much. Always a pleasure hearing from you and some very interesting new points. Thank you.
Asante.
Okay, I think we can have one last professional here, and that is Ann Gatia. Ann Gatia in the house. Ann Gatia? Okay.
And I think she does not have audio. So, Anne, if you want to make a comment, you may need to get out or include your video. Maybe that's why she can't hear you. Okay.
Okay.
Back to you, Lorraine.
Okay. Seems we can't hear her at all.
No, we won't be able to.
Okay.
So you can move on to the next person.
Okay, fine. So Ann Gatia is not there. So one question that came in for Mildred, I think sometime in the course of your presentation, what is a good temperature to store food? I think as we wind up, that would be something somebody wants to know. What's a good temperature to store food?
Okay, a good temperature to store food. I believe that came in on the slide where I had the fridge.
Yes.
The fridge, and I was mentioning the temperature to store our foods in the fridge. And it was between your fridge temperature. There are some fridges that come with the temperature sensor that you can control the temperature, or inside the fridge. There are other fridges that have it inside, some have it outside. So you should always check that the fridge is between 0 to 5 degrees. That is the best temperature to store our foods. 0 to 5 degrees centigrade, not Fahrenheit, centigrade.
Okay. I think that comes out very clearly.
And what if majority don't have fridges? What do you do?
For those who don't have fridges, look for a cool place in the kitchen. For fruits and vegetables, if I don't want to put them in the fridge, I normally leave them somewhere in the kitchen, far away from other foods. If you have a pantry or you have a store somewhere where you can put them somewhere open. But for cooked food, once they've cooled down after cooking, make sure that they are covered. For foods that the meats and the poultry foods that go bad easily, if you get them from the market, you don't have a fridge, make sure that you cook them immediately or you parboil them before keeping it aside for cooking later. But if you don't have a fridge, just make sure that you buy as you cook, as you eat, not buying to keep to eat tomorrow or after 2 days. That way it will easily get contaminated, especially for the meat and the poultry. But for the others, we can keep them in the store, in the pantry, or somewhere airy, but remains covered to avoid the physical contaminants and also the pests.
Let me keep you on that one, Mildred, because someone says, is it safe to say that if I go shopping today and keep the shopping somewhere outside, maybe in the balcony for 3 to 5 days, the virus by then, but this would just happen in case I don't have antiseptic? Your comments, please.
Yes, it is. I can see it by Joy Kamaingi.
Yes.
Is it safe to say that if I go shopping today and keep the shopping somewhere outside, maybe in the balcony for 3 days to 5 days, the virus will have then died? According to WHO, there is no evidence that keeping your shopping somewhere outside will kill the virus for 3 days to 5 days. The only thing that WHO says is for your clothes, if you come, you remove your clothes, change into other clothes before getting into the house, then you air the clothes outside in the sun for under the sun, hot sun, the heat from the sun for a day, the whole day or 2 days, that will kill the virus. But you're not telling us 3 to 5 days in the balcony. Balcony, there is no, some are not sunny, there is no sun, but there's no evidence that if you have your products for 5 days outside, we'll just advocate for handling. Wash your hands, wipe the products, make sure that the packet or the package that you used going to the supermarket doesn't get into the house and contaminate other items in the house, your surfaces in the house. That would help, but there is no evidence towards this for now.
Okay, thank you very much.
May I just add something to that, please?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think you can't even store your food outside for 3 days. You might not have the virus, but you will also lose the food, which is definitely go bad. So we need to just be careful. Mildred has said it so many times. Just handle your food properly. You cannot leave your food in the balcony for 3 days. It will go bad, definitely. And I wanted to say something controversial also. If you notice the foods that cause food poisoning that must be handled carefully is the meats and the fishes and the chicken. That's the one that seems to be causing a problem. Our beans, the rest of the stuff is not. What does that tell you? Just something to think about. No comments needed at this point. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. So as we get to wind down, I think I have one last question, and this is something that a lot of people would like to find out. This is from Margaret Gugi. Susan, please tell us, is it necessary to cool food before preserving in the fridge? Or can I preserve it when it's still steaming? Susan, unmute your mic, please.
Yes. Okay. Is it necessary to cool food before preserving it in the refrigerator, or can I preserve it while it is still steaming? Yes, you can preserve it while it's still steaming, or you can let it cool. But I would not really advise you to store it while it is still steaming, because it will interfere with the temperature within the cabinet in the refrigerator, and that may cause other food to go bad. What we need to do in this case is to chill the food very, very fast, within 2 hours, not more. You can quicken the cooling of the food, maybe by placing it in a bowl of cold water. Then it will cool down, and then you can now place them in the refrigerator. So steaming food in the refrigerator are not really encouraged, though sometimes we do that. It's not really very safe for other foods that were there, because the temperature will rise up in the cabinet and will cause other food to go bad.
Okay, thank you very much, Susan. I think that has been very interesting, but to bring it all to a very good end, let's ask our co-convener, Dr. Mary Mugambi, to give us the action points. So take us home, Mary.
Thank you, Lorraine. Thank you, Alice. Hello, everyone. It's refreshing for me to sit back and listen. You will agree with me that we have learned a lot today. For me, I've learned what I do when I go to the open air market, the mama mboga. I put all my vegetables that I've bought after touching them, and even the mama mboga or the vegetable vendor has touched them, and I put them in a sack all together in one big sack. And then I come and dump them on my floor and start putting them in different places. obviously I'm going to change the way I do things. So from this, I think we will agree that our take-home message is that we must be very, very careful from the time we shop, where we get our food, how we transport the food home, and we must be very careful on how we package and store the food before cooking and even during preparation to the plate, consumption. So from the moment the food leaves the shop or the point of production to our plate, there's so many opportunities for contamination, and all of which we must avoid at all costs. I really want to thank the two speakers, Susan, Wairegi, Mildred. You've done a really good job. I would like also to thank my co-convener, Dr. Alice Ojwang. Your passion for educating people, Alice, is completely admirable. So I really thank you. Lorraine, the moderator, thank you for a job well done. And also I'd like to thank the entire audience, beginning with our international guests from far and wide, also our fellow nutritionists among us, my colleagues from the university, and also our students and anyone else who I may not have mentioned. Thank you for joining us for this conference. I believe that we may have another conference in a few weeks, and we will announce the date and the time and also the topic. So Lorraine, I give back the microphone back to you. So over back to you, Lorraine.
Thank you very much. I take the microphone gratefully, but I wish to pass it on to Alice to say the final word as the educator in this great conference. Please, Dr. Ojwang.
Thank you, Lorraine. I was not expecting to say something after my great friend Mary, of associating with her for 25 years. But also somebody suggested I should mention something. So let's just summarize. I can also give you something to take home. Your number one is F. F stands for be free of toxins. Identify where your toxins comes from, where your food, poor food handling habits come from, what you have not been doing well. Please identify that and correct that at home. And then also when you talk to somebody, please tell them that, give them the basics. Not everybody has a fridge, not everybody eats meat. Most people eat things like omena. We didn't talk about that, but we know the topic is too wide and we can't talk about everything. Secondly, remember to always rehydrate. Remember, the first one is F, second one is R. We are now talking about eating healthy. Take a lot of water. One time, of course, I went for a conference and one professor said, you know, you can never protect yourself from everything. There is still food safety issues with our productions, industrial productions, and so we consume a lot of toxins with knowingly or unknowingly. But if you take enough water, it actually helps you to excrete. So if there are two things you want to do for your health, make sure you rehydrate, take enough water, and also exercise. Because when you exercise, the body helps to excrete these toxins and helps you to take enough water. And of course, eat healthy. Eat healthy. You can see if you eat a lot of meats in your diet, you're more likely to get food poisoning as compared to also if you include a lot of fruits and vegetables in your diet. So have a balance. You don't have to be extreme. Have a balance. And there is no way you can do all this without having enough sleep. So please make sure you sleep well. And last but not least, manage stress. So I've given you an acronym. The first one is F, the second one is R, 3 E's, and an S, meaning freeze. So free of toxin, rehydrate, take enough water, exercise regularly, eat healthy, enough rest. Make sure you get your 7 to 8 hours of sleep. It cannot be less. You know, if you sleep less, your immune system is lower, you're prone to have so many other problems. And whatever stress you're having, please manage it. And remember, taking drugs without eating properly is like washing your hands and drying them in the dirt. So let's go home and eat healthy. And if you get COVID, I'm telling you, you won't even know it because you'll be healthy. So thank you very much, my friends, my colleagues from the university, and everybody who has been here to support us. We will let you know when the next conference will be. We have your contacts, and thank you. Over to you, Lorraine.
Okay. Dr. Mugambi, you want to finish off and tell us something nice? Or she's waving. Okay, so I just wanted to say thank you all once again for being with us, as has been said by everybody. We thank our presenters, we thank our conveners. Thank you for coming up with these very great ideas. The points we have learned today, very useful as they were, can be found on YouTube. The link shall be communicated once we have it. I'm sure we are now all very well equipped to handle our food well and hygienically. We shall be back next time. And until then, please stay safe, flatten the curve, sleep well, and have a good evening. Thank you very much, everybody. Good evening.
Thank you,
Bye.
Lorraine. Thank you, Lorraine, our
Thank you,
coach,
everyone.
our mentor. Thank you very much.